Hello there.
Hello.
Hello, Governor. We got some British food for you. Hey guys, welcome back to What We Eat Tonight. So you want to cook that special someone a fancy dish and you think to yourself, beef Wellington, because Gordon Ramsay has you convinced that that is the perfect dish you could possibly make. Only you don't have $120 to throw down on a fancy piece of meat like that. So what do?
You know what? You could still make a fancy and show-stopping dinner, but with a lot less money. Instead of making beef Wellington using beef tenderloin, which is going to cost you around $15 to $30 a pound, we are going to make pork Wellington using pork tenderloin, which is only going to cost you about $7 per person. It is prepared exactly the same way as a beef Wellington, and I'm not gonna lie, it sounds very complicated, but it really isn't once you understand how this whole thing comes together. And it is very time consuming, but I guarantee you the result is fantastic. And the most important thing is it is budget friendly. It's gonna save you a lot of money.
Before we get into this, I just want to clarify, I'm not counting the price of bulk ingredients like salt, pepper, butter, oil, that kind of stuff. Those are ingredients you likely already have. Alright, so the pork tenderloin I have here is 1.39 pounds. It's $3.99 per pound, so it came down to $5.55 total. 11 ounces of cremini mushrooms, these are $2.99. Some garlic, and thyme from my garden. Dijon mustard, black pepper, and salt, of course. Prosciutto, I'm using 6 slices, so $2.99. We'll also need some butter because duh, butter. And lastly, puff pastry. This box has 2 sheets, but we only need 1 sheet today, so that's only $1.99. We'll save the other sheet for some breakfast pastries. And the grand total comes down to $13.51. We got 2 people, so divide that in half and you get $6.75, about $7 if you really want to count the garlic and thyme. For this tenderloin, we wanted to have an even cylindrical shape, so I'm going to trim off this end part here that's slightly smaller and pointy. Pretend you're a rabbi and snip it off. Oh wait, rabbis don't eat pork. Next, I'm actually going to sous vide my tenderloin. If you don't have a sous vide stick, don't worry about it. It's not necessary. You can skip ahead to the next step and I'll explain how you could do it without a sous vide. I got you, no worries. I just really like the sous vide method because I find it to be consistent and this is my favorite way to cook pork tenderloin. Now we're going to make the mushroom paste that is wrapped around the pork, as the French call it duxelle. See, I told you this dish was fancy. Chop the mushrooms up into small pieces. I'm using a food processor, but a knife works too. Then dump them into a dry skillet on medium heat. This may seem like a ton of mushrooms, but mushrooms are mostly water, so they're going to shrink down a lot once we cook off the moisture. Add some butter, then season with salt and pepper. And add a sprig of fresh thyme. Optional but totally recommended, a splash of wine. Then just cook this until it's completely dry and let it cool. 2 hours later, take the sous vide tenderloin out. If you're using a raw tenderloin, this step is going to be exactly the same. You're going to pat it dry with some paper towels and then season it with some salt and pepper. Put a skillet on high heat and then add some oil. When the skillet is screaming hot, drop the tenderloin in and sear it until you get a beautiful golden color on the outside. This is the Maillard reaction and it's going to add tons of flavor. Remove it from the skillet and put it on the plate and let it cool completely. Once it's cooled, brush it with Dijon mustard. Make sure you cover the whole thing. Lay 6 slices of prosciutto on plastic wrap. You want to make sure this is wide enough to cover the whole tenderloin. Then spread the cooled duxelle on top of the prosciuttos. You want to try to spread this out as evenly as possible. Place the tenderloin on top, then start rolling it while making sure the tenderloin is nicely wrapped in that mushroom and prosciutto blanket. Tighten both sides of the plastic wrap and roll it back and forth, then chill it in the freezer for 20 to 30 minutes so it holds its shape for the next step. Flour your work surface and start rolling the puff pastry sheet to the size that's large enough to wrap your tenderloin. Mine ended up being about 13 by 14.5 inches. Place the tenderloin on top of the puff pastry and wrap it like you would your Christmas presents. Pinch the sides together and cut off any excess pastry with a knife. Tuck both ends underneath and place it on a sheet tray lined with parchment paper. Chill it for another 20 to 30 minutes in the freezer. We want the center of our already perfectly cooked tenderloin as cold as possible so it doesn't overcook during the last baking step.
Now brush it with egg wash and dock the pastry with a fork. This will prevent it from splitting or exploding from steam pressure while it's baking in the oven. Jen is feeling a bit extra today, so she's going to decorate her Wellington with the pastry she trimmed off from earlier. Now brush it with egg wash again and sprinkle some flaky salt on top. Bake it in a preheated oven set to 450 degrees for 17 to 20 minutes until the pastry is golden brown. If you skip the sous vide step and your tenderloin is raw, instead bake it at 420 degrees for 25 to 30 minutes or until an internal meat temperature of 140 to 145 degrees is achieved and the pastry is golden brown. Take some time to admire this beauty. I mean, if this doesn't look fancy, I don't know what is. Remember to let it rest for 20 minutes before slicing.
Jamie Oliver, Gordon Ramsay. Alright, we're gonna try this pork Wellington that we just made. Look at this. The pastry and the duxelle is nicely wrapped around the pork. And you can kind of see like a really thin layer of prosciutto.
That's true. Oh yeah, got a nice bite right here.
The tenderloin is nice and buttery. It's very juicy and you get that salty prosciutto. And the mushrooms is also super buttery. Taste a little bit of that wine.
That's good.
And the puff pastry is just really good.
This sure beats the pants off a normal pork loin. I mean, it's a nice cut of meat inside a crispy layer of mushroom, prosciutto, and a crispy pastry crust. Mmm, so delicious.
Chef kiss. I don't know, if someone made me this, I'd be very happy. So when you're cooking someone dinner, it's not about the price, it's about the effort that you put into it, right? And the final presentation. If you know what you're doing, a cheap cut of meat could become something that's super, super fancy. Well, next time, if you're looking to make something fancy for a special occasion, definitely give this pork Wellington a try. Save beef Wellington for like Christmas or New Year. And if you do make it at home, let us know what you think and leave us a comment and like our video, subscribe to our channel, and we will see you next time.